Kia ora and welcome to Pacific Pulse. I'm Tanya Nugent. Coming up, making music make money for the music makers. An exhibition celebrating the work of Tongan women. And something funky from one of New Zealand's most popular dance groups. Making it big in the music business is tough all over the world, but in the Pacific for many artists, being popular rarely translates to financial reward, largely because there's very little copyright protection of their work. I travelled to Papua New Guinea, where radio stations, recording studios and an Australian performing rights organisation are working with musicians to change all that. A local string band is recording an album in the Port Moresby studios of Papua New Guinea's largest recording company. They've got the talent and there's certainly an appetite for this sound amongst Papua New Guinea's 6 million people. But tomorrow the band will be back out on their boats, fishing for their livelihood. Only a handful of PNG's musicians are making a full-time living off their talent.
With CHM Supersound Studios, playing for you the best from PNG music.
Papua New Guinea's Copyright Act was introduced in 2002, giving local musicians the rights to claim royalties every time their music is used. But there's been very slow progress putting those rights into action.
Well, the challenge is actually trying to get the musicians to be more aware of their rights under the Copyright Act. I think that's probably the biggest hurdle because we have artists that are in different centres in different provinces who have very limited access to communication, but we need to make a start.
It protects our artists, it protects ourselves as well, since as a record company we own the sound recordings.
Recording studio CHM Supersound and radio station PNG FM are part of an industry group working to establish a national performing rights association to collect royalties on behalf of PNG musicians. And they've enlisted the help of APRA, the Australian Performing Rights Association.
That's the organisation which was set up quite a long time ago, 1926, to administer certain copyrights, music copyrights on behalf of their members. We currently have, I think, 55,000 members, which are individual songwriters and composers, as well as music publishers, and that in the territories of Australia, New Zealand and the Pacific.
We're encouraging artists to sign up with APRA at the moment so that if and when the PNG-based collective rights group is set up, APRA would then pass on the responsibility of managing the copyright collection to this entity.
We're finalising our catalogue, our publishing catalogue, to be registered with APRA. We have over 3,000 albums under our belt. That's about well over 300,000 songs. That would mean that if their music is being played in Australia or in anywhere else in the world where APRA has connections with, then proper royalties will go to our artists, our songwriters over here.
And there are a lot of great artists up there who've been members of APRA for quite some time, but they've never actually been able to get any returns from the use of their music in their own country.
Having their own collective rights group will mean PNG artists can start to receive royalties for music used in their own country. There are similar challenges across the Pacific.
Unfortunately in Vanuatu we don't have any copyright law yet. So basically our artists and composers and performers are pretty much unprotected.
It's quite hard, you know. A lot of bands like KRK, we don't make a living out of music. Even though sometimes we play somewhere, the music, all of us, we don't get paid or anything. It's just free. I mean, we play for the love of music, you know.
In Vanuatu, the Cultural Centre is being assisted by New Caledonia's Performing Rights Society, SASENC, who've begun conducting music copyright awareness workshops for local musicians.
This workshop is trying to not only push our government to be more proactive in introducing copyright, but also get musicians prepared for the next step, which is when there is a law, all the things that have to happen then.
CHM Supersound has also held workshops for the artists on its label.
Their concerns are mostly with traditional knowledge and how to preserve it. Especially with traditional music, songs that have been passed on from generation to generation.
Copyright laws only go up to a certain point, I suppose, in terms of protecting the interests of traditional cultural expressions.
If it's traditional knowledge, then you can't own the copyright. I mean, it belongs to your village, it belongs to your tribe, I guess.
But then also there are a lot of younger musicians that are using their traditional knowledge in contemporary expressions of culture, dealing with communities in Australia and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities in Australia. There is a real emphasis from the elders also that the arts and music in particular is a really good way of connecting their young people to their culture.
We hope that out of this copyright activity, that other young artists that come through won't have to go through the difficulties of having to balance a talent which they are very good at and the ability to actually live and feed their families.
Thank you.
In many Pacific countries, sewing and weaving and making bark cloth are considered to be far more than handicrafts. In Tongan tradition, they're regarded as treasures, and for the women, making them is a way of life. In New Zealand, Clement Paligaru found an exhibition that celebrates the work of Tongan women who are continuing this craft tradition in their adopted country.
The textile traditions of Tonga are known as koloa. This exhibition celebrates the work of local Tongan women.
What you see in essence is teo teo, which is to adorn a space, and it's a customary way of adorning a space using koloa, which is our cultural wealth for Tongan women, which includes fibre mats, tapa cloth, bar cloth. And you also have this development in New Zealand with the quilt.
Fresh Gallery is a contemporary art space, but the Koloa exhibition avoids the modern art gallery treatment of just hanging works on stark white walls.
These art forms are for them. Culturally, it's part of who they are. It's not something they just put on a wall. It's worn, it's smelt, it's experienced in the manner that you would see a Tongan home or a Tongan event.
It is traditional and yet still contemporary, because what the women are showing here is a development of their koloa as migrants from the islands to New Zealand, to an urban environment. So what we have here is a kato teo, and a kato teo is a gift basket that's taken to funerals, birth, wedding ceremonies, and traditionally it held coconut oil bottles and other fragrances.
Which is traditional material, but you have new material here.
We do, and this is also a kato teo. It talks about the Tongan diaspora, it's talking about migration and the new urban environment and these new influences, but also about the readily available materials that these Tongan women have and that they use to adorn their new kato teo.
And it looks fantastic.
It does, yeah, and it's still a kato teo.
Thanks for watching Pacific Pulse, and we'll leave you now with Funky Munkyz, one of New Zealand's most popular dance groups. Here they are performing at New Zealand's Mr. Pacific Male Model Competition. Enjoy!